Hello and welcome back, everyone. We've had a blue-furred geneticist on the slab, we've had a weather goddess, and today we're going somewhere colder and quieter and infinitely sadder. Because today's subject isn't a mutant, isn't a soldier, and you probably won't think of him when you think of a superhero. What he is a man who was bored, volunteered to have his body taken apart and rebuild as a weapon to save his planet, and who has spent every second since trying to make up for what that weapon did. Can you guess? Yep, you're right, it's the Silver Surfer from Fantastic Four. You know the aesthetic of him, a chrome man on a surfboard, gliding past a nebula looking pained, while also seeming above it all. But almost nobody knows what's actually going on inside that silver shell, and I want to make it clear that it isn't just another "How strong is the surfer" video. This is a complete dissection of the prime Silver Surfer. Yes, there's many, aka Norrin Radd. How his senses got rewired to feel the whole galaxy at once, what the power cosmic can genuinely do, why in the world did Galactus make him silver specifically, and how the same anatomy that now lets him save worlds also guarantees he can never ever forget the ones he helped end. Let's dive into it. Who was Norrin Radd before he became the Silver Surfer? Before there came the planet-eating cosmic giant, there was a bored man on a perfect planet. Norrin Radd was a Zenlavian from the world of Zenla in the Deneb system. What you need to know about Zenla is that it was a true utopia. No war, no hunger, no hardship of any kind. And any problem their civilization had ever faced, they'd solved centuries ago. So now what remained was a society of people enjoying an eternal holiday weekend, completely at ease and happy. Well, except for Norrin. Depending on which issue you've read, he's been described as an astronomer, a scientist, or a philosopher, but the one constant about him is his restlessness. He's always been someone who craves meaning, but is stuck in a world that's abolished the need for any. He spent his days dreaming about the stars, about exploration, about a purpose worth having, in a place that had quietly decided purpose was unnecessary. And there's a beautiful irony in that. This irony is the foundation of what happens to him, a man desperate for something greater who got exactly what he asked for, and it ended up destroying him. The one thing that made him happy was Shalabal. She's introduced properly in the double-sized origin issue Silver Surfer No. 1 from 1968, and she is the emotional core of Norrin's story. She loves him, supports him, stands by this dreaming and discontent man while everyone else on Zenla just wondered what the hell his problem was. So no, the Silver Surfer does not start as a cosmic entity. He starts as just a person, someone who has a job, a home, and someone waiting for him. What makes the rest of his story so tragic is what he already had, and ends up losing it all. Going to bring up the Fantastic Four first steps here because I'm sure it's fresh in everyone's minds. That movie swapped this around, giving us Julia Garner as Shalabal in the surfer role on an alternate Earth. She became Galactus' herald to protect Zenla and her family, and later apparently sacrificed herself to save Earth. To no one's surprise, a certain section of fans hit the roof over this, which is so silly because it's literally from the comics. In Earth X, Franklin Richards makes Shalabal his herald, and she later travels alongside Norrin. What deal did Norrin Radd make with Galactus, and how did it rewrite his anatomy? And then Galactus turned up, and usually that's the end of the story. He turns up and all life ends. After thousands of years of peace, Zenla discovered that it had nothing to fight back with, because there had been nothing to fight for millennia. What weapons and ships they had did nothing. The Devourer of Worlds was going to eat the planet, everyone on it, and there was not a single thing this perfect utopia could do about it. So Norrin Radd flew up to meet him and made the bargain we all know about. He asked him to spare Zenla, and in turn he would serve the Devourer. He'd spend the rest of his days traveling the universe and finding Galactus other worlds to eat. Galactus said yes. And then we get to the change this whole anatomy video is about. It would be too easy to have handed Norrin a sword or maybe a brand new ship. Instead, Galactus rebuilt him from the inside out, infusing him with a fraction of the power cosmic and converting his body into a silvery, near-indestructible material. And when I say inside out, I mean that the scale of this new body is beyond what people generally think. This new body doesn't eat, it doesn't drink, it doesn't breathe, doesn't sleep, doesn't age in any way that matters. It exists to serve Galactus, converting ambient cosmic energy directly, meaning it is entirely self-sustaining and needs nothing whatsoever from the universe around it. And I can't forget his newly improved senses, now expanded to read energy signatures across interstellar distances, and even his mind was expanded to process this insane amount of input. And Galactus also built him the board, modeled on a childhood fantasy of Norrin's, which is a detail one would think was funny or even cute until you realized just how cruel it was. He took the man's boyhood dream of flying through the stars and gave it to him, literally, as the vehicle he used to find planets to murder. Also, something that the later comics added that reframes the whole arrangement is that Galactus didn't just remake the body, he suppressed Norrin's memories and dampened his soul. Why? So his herald could guide him to inhabited worlds without guilt and morality getting in the way. It's a transformation crossed with an emotional lobotomy, finishing up with a nice chrome paint job. Well, Galactus has style if nothing else. What is the power cosmic and what can it actually do through the Surfer? Like the word quantum, the power cosmic gets used like a magic word and is rarely properly explained, so I'm going to explain it for you. Put simply, it is Galactus' name for the fundamental energy he wields, a flexible, reality-level force that can be divided into a fraction and granted to heralds like a slice of cake. And note the word fraction. The Surfer's entire terrifying toolkit is barely a sliver of what his boss has up his magenta sleeves. What that sliver does for Norrin's body is this. First, it gives him superhuman strength and durability. He also gets the ability for faster-than-light travel, with complete maneuverability at those speeds rather than just going in a straight-line dash. His survival in a vacuum, in stars, in conditions that would erase anything else, etc., is guaranteed. On the attack side, he's got energy projection, blasts, barriers, electromagnetic manipulation, matter manipulation of course, which we'll get to properly in a moment because it's the good stuff. Telekinesis, telepathy, intangibility, interdimensional travel, cosmic senses that read life and energy across star systems. Across different stories, he's even demonstrated abilities such as time travel, illusion casting, invisibility, and even pocket universe creation. Honestly, it would probably be shorter to list the powers he doesn't have with the power cosmic. But I have got to say this, because having so many powers has convinced half the internet otherwise. He is definitely not omnipotent. Very old cosmic entities outclass him, magic gives him serious trouble, and dear old Mephisto has spent decades tormenting him in ways that the Surfer has never managed to stop. His power has been stripped, halved, siphoned, and stolen. Dr. Doom stole it fully during the classic Fantastic Four run, as well as in the Fantastic Four Rise of the Silver Surfer film. The power cosmic is a multi-tiered toolkit that he channels through his own anatomy, so his limits are a lot about what he's willing to do with it, but it's also got lots of external limitations and vulnerabilities that kick the Surfer down frequently in his appearances. What can the power cosmic do beyond flight and energy blasts? Now to get into the weirder stuff, and this is where he stops being a superhero and starts being something closer to a minor god. No, still not omnipotent, before you ask. Healing is the big one, not just himself but across different stories the Surfer has restored or revitalized others using the power cosmic in extraordinary ways. He can fix damage back together at a level that any kind of medicine or even any supernatural remedies can't. Then there's environmental. Well, I don't want to call it manipulation, so let's say engineering. The Surfer can take a barren, hostile, rocky surface and make it habitable, by which I mean he can stabilize the dying ecosystem, rebalance a planet's atmosphere, basically make it the utopia his own planet was. In fact, when Zen-La was eventually devastated, the Surfer gave Shalabal a portion of the power cosmic, and she used it to restore life to their world before becoming its ruler. The fact that he can literally rebuild worlds and yet is rarely in the most powerful ranking is a complete joke. There's even stranger stuff, obviously, and it gets a little technical here. Localized gravity manipulation depending on his current needs, turning one element or substance into another on a whim, and quite literally reshaping physical structures at will. In Silver Surfer Black, he ignites his own surfboard into a literal star inside Null's grip to fight off the god of the symbiotes. How freaking OP is that? So you see what someone can do if they've got even the tiniest bit of the power cosmic? No wonder Galactus keeps his heralds on such a short leash, and no wonder the Surfer terrifies the cosmic community across universes. Why is the Silver Surfer silver? I remember thinking this as a kid. I remember thinking it last week, and you know what? It's a fair question. Why a chrome makeover? Why not a suit, a helmet, a cape, like every other character in the Marvel Universe? The in-universe explanation is simple. Galactus needed a body that could survive deep space indefinitely, endure the temperature and radiation extremes of star systems, and, crucially, conduct the power cosmic without disintegrating. So what he did was transform Norrin's body into a silver-skinned cosmic form capable of wielding the power cosmic and surviving deep space. Galactus made sure it could do the needful, by which I mean it can reflect, channel, and store colossal energies. The silver isn't paint, and it isn't a costume. It's his skin, and that's the reason why he doesn't need a ship, a suit, or a single breath of air even in deep space. The transformation and the power cosmic do it all. Meta-wise, aka in real life, the answer is so mundane it's funny. Jack Kirby was sick of drawing spaceships. That's literally just it. He wanted a different way for an alien to move through space, sketched the dude on a flying board, and handed it in. Stan Lee reportedly had no idea who this bald, shiny surfer in the Galactus story was even supposed to be. One of the most iconic designs in comics history exists because an artist got bored of drawing his usual. But it worked then, and it still works now. I can't end this section without talking about the symbolism of his chrome body. The silver erases every human marker he had. Can you truly understand what that means? No skin tone, no hair, no expression beyond the barest suggestion. Everything that made him a Zenlavian, that made him the person Shalabal loved, it's just gone, and it's been replaced. He exists the way Galactus wants it because he only exists for Galactus. Norrin who? How does the Surfer's board work, and is it a part of his body? The board is not a prop or a mere vehicle. It's not a skateboard, guys, though Silver Skater has a ring to it. The board is made of the same energy-infused, cosmically tempered material as the Surfer's skin, forged by Galactus at the same time, and it is effectively indestructible. It responds directly to his thoughts, like Thor with Mjolnir. His signature move is calling it back to him across enormous distances with the iconic catchphrase, "To me, my board." Is it part of his anatomy? Well, it's not fused exactly, so I'll say not really. But the board is physically bonded with the Surfer, and it functions as a focus and amplifier. By that I mean that he can fly perfectly well without it, but he simply does better with it. It's also versatile in ways people forget. Just because it looks like a surfboard doesn't mean that's all the Silver Surfer uses it for. No, it's been a shield, a weapon, a platform to carry other people because most of his allies can't survive the vacuum of space as he can. But the thing that makes it most important, which is also what we'll cover in a little bit, because the board is a cosmic extension of him, basically like a fifth limb. Anything scanning for the Surfer's energy signature finds the board too. Find the board, find the Surfer, and probably find Galactus too. This ends up being the most consequential thing about it in the Surfer storylines, because it's the reason he spent years trapped on Earth without realizing the answer was under his feet the whole time. Literally. How did the Surfer turn from World Finder to Protector, and how was he punished for it? I'll repeat myself here a bit. So the Silver Surfer's job was to find planets with sufficient energy for Galactus to consume. He had to judge them on energy content alone and not consider the inhabitants, and I can't even imagine the heavy toll it would take. Like, sure, Galactus is the devourer, he's the one doing the actual destruction, but the one at the root of it is the Surfer. And he kept doing it for nearly a century, by the comics timeline, with his conscience chemically muted so he could do it without being compromised. Find worlds, Galactus eats them, everyone dies. Repeat, over and over again. Then he found Earth. Ah, pesky little Earth. Never one to go down easy. This happened back in Fantastic Four number 48 back in March 1966, kicking off the 3-issue run which everyone calls the Galactus trilogy. and something went very wrong, or very right. He met the Fantastic Four. He met Alicia Masters, the Thing's beloved partner, a blind sculptor unable to see what he was and entirely unafraid of him. It was Alicia who reintroduced him to the concept of beauty, and to the idea that the things living on these energy-rich chunks of rock in space might have some value beyond their nutritional value to Galactus. All the control and suppression cracked, and Norrin Radd woke up inside the Surfer after decades. And what else was there to do but turn on his master, side with the Fantastic Four, and help drive Galactus off Earth? And the punishment is the best and cruelest part, because Galactus didn't kill him or snatch away his board or take away his powers. Instead, he made an invisible barrier around Earth, built it to affect one single creature in the entire universe, and just left. The Silver Surfer, with his fraction of the power cosmic intact in him, had nowhere to go. Like, it's bad enough that after a century he's finally managed to get himself away from Galactus, but he still can't go home. It's the worst possible kind of house arrest, because it's not his house. But just think about what this does to him anatomically. Here is a body engineered specifically and exclusively for infinite deep space travel, a body created to require nothing from any planet in the vast universe. And now it's locked in a cage the size of one mediocre world. All the senses he'd been given are still reaching out across the galaxy, and he can feel everything like he used to, but he can no longer touch or experience them again. The Silver Surfer is back to being little more than a dreamer looking up at the stars he couldn't ever travel, and it's not even his own stars. It's the cruelest possible sentence, and it's exactly what one expects from Galactus. How did Silver Surfer eventually break Galactus's exile? He breaks out, obviously, eventually, but before that, how does a being that powerful stay trapped? Believe me, he tried everything to get out, repeatedly, obsessively, for years. He hurled himself at the barrier over and over. He teamed up with Reed Richards, the smartest man alive, to attack the problem scientifically. He even had Dr. Strange drag him into another dimension to slip around it, and they had to come back when it got too dangerous. He tried channeling the Hulk's gamma radiation through himself to punch out. He ended up getting so damn desperate for raw cosmic energy that he started ripping into the upper atmosphere without initially considering how that could damage the ozone layer for the people living underneath. To be honest, I'll give him a pass on this. Man was in a bad state. In the meantime, he'd become a reluctant Earth hero. He fought Doom, Mephisto, and even co-founded the Defenders. Although the Fantastic Four remained his allies, his only real friend during those years was a physicist called Al B. Harper, who died saving the world from the Stranger, because of course he did. Silver Surfer, like so many in the Marvel Universe, just cannot catch a break. Though there does come a partial break in the 1982 one-shot, where he gets free with the Four's help and races home to Zenn-La. And what does he find there? His beloved utopian home planet, which he'd sacrificed himself for, is now a wasteland. Bravo, Galactus. And then the people that are still there tell him that Mephisto has kidnapped Shalabal to Earth, so he has to get back to his imprisonment again after all. Thankfully, the real answer comes in July 1987, and it's brilliant. After yet another failed attempt, the Fantastic Four sit down and brainstorm it, and the Fantastic Four finally hit upon the idea that he should try leaving without the board. The barrier is meant for just the Surfer, and they wonder whether it's somehow linked to his board. So the Surfer leaves the board behind, climbs aboard the FF's spaceship like an ordinary passenger, and sails straight through. Years of exile and suffering solved by a guy from Yancey Street, suggesting he try not using his powers. He then rebuilds his board from atoms on the other side, flies to Galactus, and offers a deal. What is with this guy and deals with Galactus of all people? Anyway, so his offer was that he'd rescue his current Herald Nova from the Skrulls, and then he would have to lift the barrier entirely. Galactus agrees. The Surfer rescues her almost instantly, and the Devourer of Worlds remains true to his word and takes down the barrier. Credit where it's due.
Time to end this.
How is Silver Surfer different from the other Heralds of Galactus? Like I've mentioned, Norrin isn't the only one, which means there's kind of a hierarchy when it comes to the Herald of Galactus title. The Surfer wasn't even the first one, by the way. The Fallen One preceded him. And after Norrin's betrayal, Galactus went through heralds like a man determined to go through his little black book in a week. These are names you probably won't have heard except Nova, because they just didn't last long. Airwalker, Firelord, Terrax the Tamer, Nova aka Frankie Ray from Earth, Morg, Stardust, Redshift. Instead of going into each one in detail, which would be stupid because the video is about Norrin, I'm going to talk about their working styles because they're wildly different. Terrax is the embodiment of brute force, being a tyrant who ruled a world before Galactus found him, and who used the power cosmic like a hammer. Morg is more your straightforward executioner, picked precisely because he was pitiless and could do the job without getting emotional. Firelord and Airwalker were soldiers who did the work, not much except that. Nova was impulsive and emotional, but Frankie Ray actively wanted the job, which is really unsettling. Why? Because she found the destruction thrilling rather than agonizing. Now, that's messed up. And then there's Norrin, who agonized over every planet, who balanced negotiations with his search for uninhabited worlds and protecting whatever he could, and who eventually committed career suicide because a blind sculptor on a backwater planet reminded him what beauty and life mean. So that's the distinction in the little class system of heralds. They've all been granted the power cosmic, but the way they use it, and sometimes the amount Galactus grants them, is what really sets them apart. Galactus has handed the power cosmic to tyrants, thrill-seekers, and killers, and it's worked out fine for him every single time. But he handed it to a philosopher just once, and it literally cost him Earth. A conscience will do that, and the Silver Surfer's got a very strong one. What are the emotional and philosophical costs of being the Surfer? It weighs on you. It has to. Every world he found, every planet he pointed his master at, every civilization that ended because he did his job well. He remembers it all, and since the memory suppression that let him work without emotions, what's left is perfect recall of a century of complicity and debilitating guilt that can never go away. Sure, he didn't pull the trigger, but he handed over the gun in the first place. His body, this body, the one he's still wearing, the one made by Galactus to commit mass genocide of world after world, it's the reason why. Turning against Galactus is heroic, but it doesn't undo any of it. He can't bring back the countless civilizations consumed by Galactus, and there's no absolution available. The worlds are still gone, and all he can do is carry it forever, in the same body that destroyed in the first place. As if the guilt isn't enough, there's the alienation. On Earth, he's too strange and too powerful to belong. The original Lee run is basically an observation of human cruelty by a man who gave up everything to save people and is now treated as a monster for it. And then, in space, he's haunted by the ghosts of entire planets. Neither place is home, and before you mention Zenla, well, that stopped being home the second he flew up to make a deal with Galactus the first time. How do Requiem, Annihilation, and Silver Surfer Black evolve his cosmic anatomy? When a character has existed for half a century, it might get difficult to find new stories for them, but modern writers have taken the Silver Surfer in some fascinating directions, including a few standalone tales, and 3 stories stand out. Requiem asks the question everyone's thought but has never actually asked. Can the Silver Surfer die? J. Michael Straczynski and Esad Ribic's 4-issue Marvel Knight series has as its main plot his protective silver shell beginning to deteriorate. It's flaking away like a cosmic version of chickenpox, and he has 30 days left. And what he does with them is the most Norrin thing imaginable. He travels through the galaxy, saying goodbye to his near and dear, and then, and this still astounds me to this day, he gives humanity 5 minutes of total peace and harmony. Can you imagine it? 5 minutes with no hate anywhere on Earth, just so people would know what it feels like? And the art in this issue is worth framing. Annihilation, on the other hand, does the opposite, and it tests the Herald's physique in an all-out cosmic horror, which bodes great for an anatomy video. Keith Giffen and Renato Arlem's Annihilation Silver Surfer has him uniting Galactus' current and former Heralds against the Annihilation wave. And then, ironically, to protect Galactus during the Annihilation crisis, Norrin takes his job back, willingly. He becomes the Herald of Galactus again at full power, and he and his old master proceed to wipe out a vast chunk of the enemy together. It boggles the mind, doesn't it? A man who has spent years to find himself by giving up that role and refusing it, has now picked it back up because a worse alternative finally exists. Silver Surfer Black goes boldly somewhere you might not have thought of. It goes primordial. Donny Cates and Tradd Moore drop Norrin through a black hole billions of years into the past, where he meets Null, the king of the symbiotes, at the dawn of the darkness. You see why this issue is called Black now? As we mentioned earlier, this is when he ignites his board into a star inside Null's fist, blasts him across the cosmos, and Ego the living planet finishes the job with magma. But this little excursion stains the Surfer, literally. His chrome shell turns black and stays black until the Enigma Force heals him during King in Black. So that brings me to the point of this section. His anatomy might seem like something that never changes, but it isn't actually fixed. It rots, it alters, it takes on darkness. And it all really depends on writers who keep finding new places to take the Surfer. How does the Surfer's changed body make his guilt and loneliness worse? Let's remember again what his anatomy really means. The Silver Surfer doesn't need food, he doesn't need sleep, he doesn't need air or shelter or company or rest. Which might sound like liberation and loads of free time until you realize the downside exists, and it's pretty bad. There is no off switch, no unconsciousness, no hunger to distract him, no exhaustion to knock him out. He can't just go take a nap on a bad day or binge eat ice cream because he's sad. The only thing he can do is drift between galaxies indefinitely. But even then, he's cursed with being perpetually awake and with nothing whatsoever to do except remember. Galactus engineered him a body with infinite uptime and then filled his head with a century of atrocities. To talk about aging, because we haven't talked about it much. So effectively he doesn't. He's immortal, or pretty close to it. Which means that everyone he meets, everyone he cares about, everyone who ever treats him like a person rather than a phenomenon, Shalabal, Albie Harper, Alicia, the humans of Requiem, will die. And he'll watch them die. And one day he'll have no one and nothing left except memories and grief. Okay, that was a little too heavy, but just imagine how heavy it is for Norrin. Which brings us back to the Chrome one last time and the perfectly awful metaphor in it. He's a mirror. He reflects everything he passes, every planet, every star, every face that looks at him, and shows them all back. He sees everything, and he carries all his experiences with him, and he'll do it until the end of time. But pretty soon there will be no one who looks at the Silver Surfer and remembers that he was once a restless man from Zenla who just wanted his life to mean something. So let's put him back together on the table. Norrin Radd asked for one thing, and one thing only, to save his world. And he got it. And he's never stopped paying the price for it. Galactus stripped out every human limit he had, gave him a fraction of a god's power, along with living silver skin, cosmic senses, and a board that rides black holes and turns into a living star, and then switched off his conscience so the work of eating and destroying planets would go smoothly. When that conscience finally came back, everything that made him an executioner became the anatomy of a penitent instead. Invulnerable, sleepless, ageless, and he could never forgive himself. He can also definitely never forget because he has to live inside the body that did all those things for eternity. That's a more interesting dissection than a simple breakdown of facts about his body. The Silver Surfer isn't just tragic because he's sad. He's tragic because he was built with enormous care to be exactly the kind of creature who could calmly commit the atrocity Galactus needs. And now that he's got to carry that with him forever, which is an awfully long time for someone immortal. So, question for you lot to finish this. Is the power cosmic the greatest gift in the Marvel Universe, or the single cruelest punishment ever handed to anyone? Let me know down in the comments, smash that like and subscribe, and tell me whose anatomy you want on the slab next. See you in the next one!